everybody, this is Caitlin, and you are watching Zombie Eats Books. So I read some books, and let's talk about them. The first book that I read was Euphoria by Lily King. This was published in 2014. It takes place in New Guinea in the 1930s, and it revolves around the lives of three anthropologists out in the field. Two of the anthropologists are a husband and wife team, Nell and Fen Stone, and then the odd man out is Andrew Bankson, I think his name is. And it's about their relationship and the tricky emotions that develop between the three of them. It's also about the clash between Western thought and New Guinea culture. Each of these anthropologists had different reasons for being out in the field, and they had different ideas about the New Guinea culture, and they had methods that certainly reflected those differences. It's also about sexism in a male-dominated field. Nell Stone is the most successful of the three anthropologists, yet she is the one that faces the most criticism for her work. She published a book and it was widely successful, and yet her methods are attributed less to science and more to sensationalism. I think the narrative style was an interesting choice and it worked well for the storyline. It was executed in such a way that it extended the mystery of the conflict in here. It has three different POVs. The first is just the first chapter, and it's the third-person perspective of Nell Stone. And then for the remainder of the book, you're mostly in the first-person perspective of Andrew Bankson, the odd man out. And then at some point, interspersed within Bankson's narrative, you get entries in Nell Stone's journals. I appreciated Bankson's POV because it was most naturally the POV of the reader, because it put you in this observational sort of perspective into the power dynamics and the relationship between Fen and Nell. However, if there had been some way for Lily King to write from Nell's perspective, maybe from a first-person perspective, I think that would have been amazing if she had been able to still maintain the mystery of the conflict that was just sort of hinted at throughout the book but never fully stated. I think that would have been great. I just wanted more of Nell. I wanted to be inside of Nell's head. And I probably do have to acknowledge, though, that that was probably Lily King's intent, is to make you fascinated with Nell, because that's what really drove this story. Overall, I really liked it. It didn't blow me away, but I would definitely read more of her work. Okay, so the next book that I read is Irene by Pierre Lemaitre. I don't know how to say French names. This is the first book in a crime mystery series. It was first published in French in 2006 and then later in English in 2014. The second book, Alex, was actually published before this book in 2013, but I am so glad I didn't read Alex first because Irene is a great setup novel. Other than the fact that this is about a lead investigator looking into some serial murders, I don't want to tell you much of anything about this plot because the less I tell you, the more you will enjoy it. Just know that it doesn't pull its punches, it's brutal, and it plays with this area between reality and fiction. It also makes you feel like you're reading this enjoyable but somewhat mediocre novel throughout the majority of it, but you're not. It's much better than what it appears to be. The ending is the best part, and I would elaborate, but then I would spoil it majorly for you. Just know, for me, the ending was absolutely worth what appeared to be a normal, enjoyable, but unremarkable novel. And yeah, I'm so excited for the second book in this series. So the next book I read was also a French novel. This is Madame Bovary by Gustave Flaubert. And I go like this when I don't know how to pronounce things. I don't know why. I should probably know how to pronounce that because he's a pretty famous author. I'm going to cut this part out later. So this was published in 1856 in serialized form, and Flaubert actually went to trial because of it, because he was accused of offenses against morality and religion. And nothing gets my attention better than an author who has to go to trial for writing a book, because that means it was interesting in some way. So this book is a book probably best known for being about adultery. It's about Emma Bovary and her husband, a simple country doctor. Emma is interesting because she grows up in a pretty secluded lifestyle. She grows up in a convent, and then she lives with her father only for a while, and then she's suddenly married off to this doctor. And what she's done basically her whole life is read fiction. And she wants everything that she has read about in books. She wants adventure. She wants passion. She wants great love. She wants to go to parties and be courted by dashing men. I thought of her as this character who couldn't distinguish between reality and imagination, and someone who was constantly looking outside of herself for happiness. So if Emma represents imagination to me, then I would say that her husband represents a complete lack of one. He's so simple-minded and content with his lot in life and his place in society, and because he's happy, he automatically assumes that Emma is as well. It doesn't even occur to him that she might not be happy with her life. So basically what Flaubert does with this novel is he creates this scathing criticism of French society at this time by using like psychological realism to get you inside of these horrible people's heads. I mean, you will like no one in this novel. I expected to sympathize with Emma, and in some ways I did, but for the most part, I despised her. I despised her husband. I despised everyone in the village that lived with them. They were all horrible people because I was privy to the motivations for their actions. Emma is superficial and vain and naive, and Bovary is just stupid and weak, and then there's this priest who's pretty apathetic, and then a pharmacist whom I am assuming is an atheist and comes off as just being arrogant and an asshole. And I'm not critiquing atheists here. I actually am an atheist, but he just happened to be in conversation with the priest all the time, and they would argue all the time. And by his conversations, although he didn't admit it, I would say that guy was an atheist, but he was pretty arrogant about it. Anyways, what I'm getting at is that no one is likable in this novel, and yet the most interesting thing about that is that you feel still somewhat sympathetic to this married couple because you feel like they're trapped within the confines of this society that has created these gender spheres that are just so constricting and cause so much differences in the lives between men and women when there doesn't need to be that kind of difference. I mean, when you create differences like that, it's going to make it hard for people to connect on meaningful levels. And I'm not saying that problems with connecting with people and problems with communicating with people don't exist today in relationships, but certainly this social structure did not help with that. So this book was slow in parts, but there were parts that I really enjoyed. I don't think it's a book that I'm going to reread 100 times in the future, and it's not a book that I'm going to absolutely recommend to people, but I will say that it was really interesting, and I liked thinking about it, thinking about what the author's intent was, and maybe I'll read it once in the future just to have that closer eye on the details and seeing if I think the same things after I finish it. Yeah, so that's all I have to talk about. I'm going to cut away to some footage that I filmed earlier with my daughter. She read some children's fiction, so if you're interested in hearing about that, then stay tuned. Okay, so last but not least, I have some books that my daughter would like to talk about. If you like children's fiction, so what are these books called?
Keeper of the Lost Cities. No, that's the second.
That's a good place to put them.
It's about a girl named Sophie. She's a telepath. And then all of a sudden this boy comes up to her one day and says that she's an elf and she has to forget everything that she learned. And She has to forget about her family because her family's not really her family.
Is that a spoiler?
Yes.
I should have said that. That's alright. Did that happen in the first book?
Yeah.
Oh well. So, what did you like about these books?
Why did you slap them? They were humorous, adventurous, mysterious, and in the second and third book, at some parts, it was a little bit scary.
I like how you're like framing your face with the books. I should do that. All right. So, are you going to continue with the series?
Of course. Yes.
Of course. All right. So this would be a good recommendation for other people about your age. Palace
Like 8, 9, 10.
Palace is 9. Yes.
So, yeah.
All right. Keeper of the Lost Cities.
First.
Check it out. Well, thank you so much for watching. Let us know if you've read any of these and what you thought about them. Bye-bye.
Bye.